Oh, hi. Oh, hi, everyone. You're a little Minnesota today. Not only did you get a little bit of Minnesota, you get a little Minnesota today. You got a little bit yesterday. Meeting Indie Agency, we had Latitude, or as we pronounce it in the Twin Cities, Latitude. But super stoked. So the backstory on this is like, yeah, okay, jerk, why are you doing a Minnesota accent? So I am a proud Minnesota native. I was born outside of the Twin Cities. I lived in the area until I was 12. So I've got very, very deep roots in the Twin Cities. And we're going to talk to a few folks from Fast Horse, Indie Agency News members, and to all of you who are members, thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to learn more, please go to indieagency.news. There's a little WhatsApp button down there. You can get in touch with me directly. Happy to talk to you. We have a show every day at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. That'd be 11 Central, and 5 p.m. GMT. And tomorrow is all about fun and games. Fridays, we decided to just cut loose a little bit, let everybody get a little creative oxygen, maybe relax a little bit, let off a little bit of steam. So tomorrow we've got the first episode of Liar Liar. So if you're familiar with the game Two Truths and a Lie, it's like a little bit of a thing like that. If you're familiar with the British panel show Would I Lie to You, similar to that. So we've got one contestant and one judge tomorrow. Christine Prinz from 22 Squared is our contestant. Rachel Carlson from Foulmouth Creative in Seattle will be the judge on this. So it's going to be very exciting. But today it's all about the work. So I'm going to play this, and just our guests don't know this, but we're going to talk a little bit about another agency's work at the end here that we got from Special Group. And but first, I want to start with this.
Hi, I'm Jason Biggs, and I'm America's biggest pie lover. Not in a weird way. There's nothing more American than pie, so I've teamed up with Edwards to start your 4th of July off with a bang. Detonation. Explosion. Nope. I've teamed up with Edwards on a limited edition pie. Pie Lover's Passion Fruit Pie. Luscious layers of passion fruit, coconut mousse, pineapple cream. I can say cream, right? God. Passion fruit. Because apple is so 24 years ago. There's nothing hotter than frozen pie. Visit pieloversunite.com for a chance to get your hands on one. Did I say hands that time? Sorry.
Let's fire up the innuendo machine. But that's okay. Aaron, Scott, and Eric from Fast Horse, Indie Agency News members, thank you so much for joining us today. You can see their titles down below. And so the first thing, I remember when this dropped. And I also remember, and there are these conversations about puns and innuendo and things like this, and it can come across as incredibly forced. But in this case, it's one of those situations where the stars seem to align and everything comes together in a way that feels right and just works. So I'd like for you to talk about, break down the work a little bit and talk a little bit about the brief and maybe some of those discussions internally about, are we going the right direction here? So I'm laying that up. Whoever wants to grab that, go for it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, well, in terms of the brief, right? Edwards is actually the category leader in frozen pies and desserts, but their competitive set, which are more household names like Sara Lee, Marie Callender's, Cheesecake Factory. I think a big part of that is because of the fact that they have other lines of business, right? With the Cheesecake Factory restaurant, Sara Lee has the bread, Marie Callender's has a plethora of frozen food options. And so part of this was really creating awareness for the Edwards brand and getting their product front and center, making it as an object of desire, if you will. What's interesting too, if you compare the Edwards frozen pies to the competition, you can see that there's a premiumness about them. They feel very elevated. They're very artfully designed. And so again, we wanted to kind of showcase that and get that in front of consumers. The other thing that we did from an audience perspective is that the brand was interested in kind of aging down a bit. And so there was a design target that we were trying to reach. She's, kind of a younger Gen X or older millennial mom. She's kind of living, of course, that hairy, chaotic kind of lifestyle, but she really is kind of the glue and the connector, both with her family and with her social group and community. And what we found out through some of the research is that she indexes incredibly high on kind of social digital consumption, and that she was really seeking out content that would kind of alleviate that stress that she had been kind of inundated by all day, and as a way to kind of relax and just kind of end her day. She was consuming content that was funny, that she found funny, that was kind of relevant to her, and this felt like a very nice way in, given the fact when the movie came out when she was about in her late teens, early 20s.
Right. So that makes sense. And real brief, just as background. So Edwards is owned by Schwann's, which is in the Twin Cities as well. And so the thing about Schwann's is that's one of those brands where you see the trucks in the neighborhoods, and it's one of those brands that you look at and go, oh yeah, I know about that. And you're to that point earlier, Aaron, there is more of a premium feel to it. I mean, they're definitely knowing Schwann's, that certainly does track. So now we have a little bit of where we sit with this, but going back to this, what were some of the internal discussions about, how do we approach this in a way that feels good, as opposed to, oh, it's a big stunt and it doesn't work? Because again, I think you're dealing with somebody in Jason Biggs, and I have a quick story about him later. But he's very recognizable, not obviously because of the films, but also he's one of those talent that's just like kind of easy to watch and fun, and like I don't have to overthink it.
Yeah. It's funny that this is one of those ideas. And we went into this knowing that, they didn't have a big paid media budget. So we needed an idea that was going to sort of punch above its weight. And the Jason Biggs idea, making him, sort of playing off his role as America's biggest pie lover, was not the only idea we brought to the client. Right. But it was the idea that just wouldn't die, and that was much to the credit of our clients at Edwards and at Schwann's. Was it just kept hanging on, and they had this idea of like, well, what if we could? And that's exactly what you want when you have a partner, is like, instead of saying we can't, they kept saying we can if, all the way to the CEO. And we can certainly talk a little bit more about where and how we sort of figured out exactly how to use him. But that's where the brief sort of changed from, make this brand relevant in culture, to them buying the Jason Biggs idea. And then sort of, part of that was, this is one of those instances where testing was the agency's friend.
Right.
They sort of put this in front of consumers and said, how would you react to this, to this kind of content and this kind of partnership? And it's not that we had, scripts or anything at that point, but just even the idea of Edwards and Jason Biggs, and it came back very favorable. Like this was, one of those things where people have a fondness for this movie, and nostalgia being what it is, it sort of gave us permission to go there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had it and then I lost it. No, you were talking about, here's where it was. So I love the fact that you're talking about, and I think this demonstrates like the difference between being a client and being a partner. The one thing that just really occurred to me as you were talking was, and having grown up a little bit in Minnesota, having some Minnesota roots, little winks of humor are a thing. And I'm wondering if, because Schwann's and Edwards is a Minneapolis and a Minnesota-based company, do you think that that their sensibility is such that it's like, yeah, you know what? That reflects where we're from, and we're okay with that. Did that play into any of the conversations?
Good. I think the openness, I think the Minnesotan maybe in all of us led to, and you grew up here, it led to sort of a more openness, more conversation we were having with the clients. So it wasn't, we were Fast Horse was not trying to sell this idea in. I think we were very curious to, when all the testing came back that Scott talked about, I think we were open, honestly, to the idea that maybe there's this place in this idea that just crosses the line.
Oh, right.
But we definitely, I think that openness made them more comfortable, honestly, with that humor, because we knew we weren't going in to test it to necessarily kill the idea, but we also wholeheartedly all admitted, probably as humble Midwesterners, that this thing could go down in flames if our audience, we affectionately call her Katie. If Katie really saw this, and if anything, we were looking for the Katies of the world to say, here's sort of that line that we can walk.
Right.
Because like you said, he's a very affable guy. He does really fit a Midwest, company's sensibilities. And he gave us that permission to go there then.
Well, and that's what I find interesting about the way that the work came out. My presumption is there was a script, but also some ad-libbing going on as well. What was the ratio of that?
It was surprisingly, I think that we had the base foundation. Then we present, I think one of Jason's first, and you had brought up the stars align. I think when we first got on a call with Jason, it wasn't just, hey, do you like these scripts? We had to ask him, like, you have one shot at this. Do you want to, is this it? And, we didn't necessarily have to convince him. He was on board. I think he'd been offered millions of these offers, but
Sure.
part of it, the attraction to Jason was like, hey, we want to work with you. We want to do plenty of ad libbing, but the foundation of the script helped. And then I think from there, we called it the Shrek test. So, and Jason really sprung well to that as well, because I think as many parents would attest, when you're watching a movie like Shrek, there's stuff that just goes over your kid's head.
Right.
And as long as we were there, and I think Jason really glommed onto that like we did as well. And our clients certainly gave them a comfort factor that we weren't going to like cross these lines and just kind of gratuitously step in it at every point of the way.
Yeah.
We made some exceptions for certain things, but going back to your question, we got like just tons of alt lines across a production day. And then really kind of, because in many cases it was how would we deliver that line? The bang line is a good example where that was maybe in our minds going in, maybe just a little, it was probably on that edge of the test. But the way he did it and the way how comfortable he was as he delivered that line, it felt natural.
Yeah. And I think that usually in the structure and construction of this type of work, there's usually, it's the wind up, the pitch, and then the payoff. But what I found in there is that there are a lot of micro payoffs in there, which I think stitch together really nicely. And it's not easy to do. And again, this comes back to this idea of this perfect storm of being able to move some things through and ensuring that you're keeping the integrity of the thing, AKA the brand, but also doing it in a way that's super playful. And I think that by having a lot of those mini payoffs throughout, that helped bring it along, and you stuck with it. Not that you wouldn't stick with it before, but it wasn't a start, middle, end. It was many chapters within with little individual payoffs. My question here, or my presumption is that as it got into edit, there are a lot of places and pieces that you were moving around saying, what about this? What about this? What about this?
That's right.
Man, that couldn't be more true. Yeah, I mean we went through hundreds of versions of this and stitched it together the way that ended up working best. But that was sort of the I guess good news about the creative concept with those director cuts built in. It sort of allowed us to really have some flexibility in the edit and also sort of that sort of notion that we're sort of going behind the scenes and hearing the director sort of cut as Jason sort of, is doing his self-deprecating sort of awkward brand of humor is, I think, what resonated with people really well. It was like not Jason sort of, doing some continuous bit. It was Jason doing his thing. That's his brand of comedy.
Yeah, and when you get into bits too much, that can get a little exhausting. Let's take now. I know this did very well, so we've talked about how the testing went. So let's take a look at this real quick.
Wait, you can't just look at the pie, Dana.
Okay,
You have to take a little taste.
It's like this is more in line with the kind of flavors that I like.
So good, we love it. The passion fruit.
It's good.
We're eating it now.
It's good. It's so good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, look, this is a match made in heaven. It's the partnership that's 25 years in the making here.
So is there a sequel?
There's more coming. We'll say that.
Hey!
Yeah. And part of the challenge there is that we can't just go back to the same old joke, right? And so how do we keep this fresh? And I think that was something where, you had mentioned, is this just a one-off stunt kind of thing? And we had to go into this thinking that it couldn't be, right? How do we sort of create some momentum here, but then sustain it? And so, even the notion that this is just a piece of content or a piece of creative couldn't have been any farther from the truth. That was the centerpiece for this, but in reality, we had sort of built in all these earned media opportunities and a media day with Jason, and you see these anchors eating the pie on camera.
Hey, listen, you got KTLA, so
you can't buy that. And then also having sort of this, the website for fans to go to and pie lovers to unite, and the pie giveaway, and we're leveraging their head chef, and there's data collection and there's influencer stuff, and so it truly was an integrated campaign from start to finish, and that's why. Ultimately, you see the success metrics here. The success metric that was not even one of the KPIs, which was very awareness based. That we need to add to this highlight reel is the fact that there was nothing else for Edwards in the market at the time, and it did a 10% sales spike year over year.
That's great. Yeah, and I mean, you can see we floated through here a little bit of some of this, and then. You had those are signed cards. Is that what that is?
Yeah. He hand signed. What was it? 100 of them at least.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah.
I can get let's see if I can get this quote right. Help me out, team. But I believe it says, "If loving pie is wrong, I don't want to be right."
I think that's correct. Yes.
I love it. This is great. Yeah. All right. So here's my Jason Biggs story real quick. So I was a morning show producer in radio. It was the Playhouse. PK, I think he's in Houston now. We were just, we were doing Mutual Admiration Society on Facebook the other day. It's like, oh, I miss you. And I do miss him. That was back when I was in my 30s. It's a long time ago. So Jason, I forget what he was promoting, but we had him on. And PK was asking, obviously about the film, and he was bleeping out an expletive, and Jason goes, "Hey, can you bleep me out?" And it was all in live time, because the way it works is PK has a machine with little buttons that you press, and it fires off sound, so he can sync it perfectly with what he's doing. And he goes, "No, we're not sure, but we can try." And so Jason goes, "No," and he goes, "No, we'll try." So everybody in the background is going, "Do it." Jason Biggs goes, "I don't give a and he gets the F-bomb out, and PK bleeps it afterwards. And it was just so great. But he was so awesome. He was awesome.
I can tell you that an early cut of the piece of content had a bleep in it as well. But
I'm sure
we decided it was a bridge too far. So.
Oh yeah, no. You got to build to that. So I want to ask you one. It's evergreen question, and you talked about this a little bit, but I think it is important for agencies, and in particular independent agencies, to understand this. what advice would you give to other indies about selling in the work? Because again, you talked about this being a conversation, and having been at agencies and observed agencies over the years, I've seen all sides of this, but based on your experiences and what you believe is the best to build a real partnership, what advice would you give other indies about selling in the work?
Aaron, why don't you take this? You were at the forefront, obviously, with all of us.
Yeah, I mean, it started with, and this probably won't come as a shock, right? I mean, we spent a good several weeks, couple months with him, really kind of digging in, immersing ourselves in the brand. We went through a pretty rigorous strategic process, right? That was kind of rooted in and data and research. And I think just going through that process alone started to build kind of trust and confidence, right? In us, in the relationship. And then when it came to actually kicking off, putting together the brief and kicking off the creative team and the amplification team, the fact that we came to the clients with a handful of just smart, creative ideas and didn't just show up with, one or two, as Scott referenced before. This thing was kind of a lucky strike extra, that the Jason Biggs idea. Again, it just bolstered that confidence and trust. And we contextualized each of those concepts with how they can work, and kind of rooted in audience and cultural insights. We had shown some stuff that even from the New York Times a couple of years ago, how they had talked about that movie and that infamous scene. And so pulling in those type of those elements to kind of help support the case of the ideas, I think again went a long way into helping us sell the ideas in, and then bringing them along the way. We've talked about client versus partner, like bringing them along the way, part of the process, truly listening to them and their feedback. And Jason was also just as instrumental in that as well.
Right.
And then merchandising every step along the way, how things are going, making sure you're pulling in the right stakeholders. And this did get up to the C-suite, and it had to be approved by them. And it was a thoughtful process that we went through to get there.
I love it.
I think it always, we mentioned that we can if attitude, and sort of sharing that, not only on the agency side, but on the client side is so important, right? It's so easy for any sort of person along the way to say we can't, but if we start from a place of we can if, and look at the hurdles and look at all the reasons why we shouldn't do this and see if there's a way to actually pull it off. That attitude is critical, and it's great that the clients had it. I will also say, much to their credit, this was one of those ideas where they needed extra money to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
And they found it. They were excited about it and they found it.
Right. Before we move on, Scott, are you related to an Aaron Broberg?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. It was going to be one of those things where I went to elementary school with.
Okay. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's such a Minnesota thing. Where'd you go to school? Oh yeah, Apple Valley. Is it?
Yes.
Everybody has a story. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our friends at Special US. They were founded in Auckland. They've got a big presence in Australia, and they have a great team in Los Angeles. They are Indie Agency News members. And they do a lot of work with Uber and Uber Eats. So we're going to take a look at this teaser real quick. So hold on one sec.
So David and I are going to be in a little commercial.
Be honest.
I am.
Honest.
Okay, it's a big commercial.
Tell them what it's during.
David, I'm trying.
No, tell them what it's during.
Okay, it's during the big baseball game.
Super big baseball game.
Oh, was it the hockey ball?
Hockey ball. Oh, and tell them about Jessica Aniston.
Jessica Aniston is going to be in it too.
Thank you. We love Jessica.
We love Jessica.
I kind of can't wait for that. I kind of can't wait for that. All right, your thoughts on? I just think the agency Special has found such a great lane for this brand. And so this is one teaser of a bunch of things that they have done over time. So let's go ahead and critique it. I mean, I love it. I can't wait to see what this is going to be.
you summed it up. We can't wait. And I think it's sort of what's so nice about it is it's got, it's a brand that's not taking itself too seriously. To your point earlier about with our Schwann's work and everything, there's an element I think that people really like that when a brand like this can come out. Obviously, some fun self-deprecating jokes, but now we all can't wait.
I know. And so Danielle Hawley, who is the I forget exactly her title, but she's the creative kahuna. She was in Seattle for a number of years. And so I can see her sensibility in it because she's like an amazing started as a copywriter and is just an amazing creative mind, but really funny. And the team at Special, it is just like with you and Edwards and all of that. You see that snap in really, really well. And the result, and that's the thing when I look at the Uber Eats work and I see what Special's doing, like, how are they going to top that? What's next? How are they going to top that? And then you keep doing it. They keep doing it.
Yeah, the bar keeps raising, right? And you know, we talked about the fact that there's more coming with Jason this year. You know, we've reset the bar, and so you know, if we're not going to come out with the same joke, what is it going to be, and how are we going to top it? And that was essentially the brief for this year.
Yeah. No, that's great. So we give an enthusiastic 4 North Stars. That's always going to be the hockey team, by the way, for me.
It is.
We give 4 enthusiastic North Stars to Special US because they did talk about the Hockey Bowl. and by the way, if anybody wants to see something truly bizarre in a good way and something you will never experience in your lifetime quite like this, it is the Minnesota high school hockey tournament, men's and women's. The state just absolutely shuts down.
And you can see by the length of our hair here.
Well, no, I'm one.
We just don't fit in like you would.
Well, no, I'm one errant clipper away from the world's greatest mullet, old man mullet.
Well, real quick, shout out on those North Stars to Special because in our agency Slack, we share work that essentially we find it inspiring. And that was just in 2 days ago. I love it. We gave it some stars. I love it. Indie agency news members coming together.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, it's funny. You see a lot of brands who are trying to ambush the, you know, quote unquote big game, right? And it comes off a little bit cheesy and a little bit ham-handed and talking about the big game and sort of, you know, dancing close to that line. They just went directly at it, right? And did it in a funny way. And so I loved it.
Yeah. Cool. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna put you backstage so I can wrap up here. But thank you so much, and then we'll see what we got coming next. So stand by backstage, and I'll be right back with you.
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug.
You can wave aloha to everybody.
All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation with our friends at Fast Horse in the Twin Cities, and great that we're able to tap into some of that work for Special as well. If you have work that you want to share with us, go to indieagency.news. You can learn more about membership and how we prioritize members. And the brief for us is building a global home for independent agencies. Our mission, serve independent agencies and the brilliant people behind them. And beyond that, it's to give independent agencies more visibility and give marketers more choice. On behalf of everybody at Indie Agency News, I'm Doug Zanger, and we will see you next time.